Something's in my eye. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm gonna have to stop doing that. I really like it. I don't even know what it is. I think Randy Moss did it. He's like looking through something. Peekaboo. I don't even know what he's up to. You've got Superman, Cam Newton. You've got Aaron Rodgers, the bad man with the heavyweight championship belt, and you've got Randy Moss, Peekaboo. Please explain. Please explain. That's all I can say. Anyways, look. Today's video has been a long while in the making. It really has. Fantasy football. That's all I've got to say. Like, honestly, it sounds so fucking fun. So that's why it's about time I get into it. I'm going to watch a video that I started watching at work probably about 2 hours ago. I got a minute in and I thought, you know what, this guy is awesome. He really does sound like the type of guy I want to listen to explain to me about fantasy football. Now, I want to give a quick shout out to all you guys who have messaged me through Instagram, YouTube, commented through YouTube, and tried to, you know, get me into your fantasy football league, or if not that, you know, at least explain how it works to me. I want to say thank you. You've definitely sparked my interest, but I still do not know exactly how it works. The thing that is the closest to fantasy football, it's actually called fantasy rugby. Not sure if it's still on at the moment, but basically fantasy rugby was a fantasy rugby league. It was worldwide though, so you went in with a certain amount of money and you went and picked your choice of player, which were obviously ranked, you know, the best players would be worth more, the shittier players would be worth less. So as in fantasy football and fantasy rugby, every week, you know, you're scored, you're measured on certain stats. So the more meters you gain, the more points you get, the more goals you kick, the more points you get, the more tries you score, the more points you get, the more broken tackles, the more tackles, you know, try assists, absolutely everything. And I think that's probably what it's going to be like in fantasy football. But fantasy rugby was awesome. I played it, last time I played it was probably age 12, 13, but I loved it. And it was like you were a manager of a team and you had a certain amount of money, like I said, you had a salary cap and you had to try and buy the best, you know, players you could. If your player had a great week, his price would go up. You could choose to sell him at the higher price, take that money and buy 2 other people, or you could keep him and sell him in the future, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, I've definitely put my rugby content in for now. So what we're going to do, we're going to get the screen recorder going and I'm going to watch this video with you guys and learn about fantasy football once and for all. Let's do this. I am pumped to watch this, honestly. I didn't know what to make of this intro, but I definitely liked the way that he began the video. I liked the way that he spoke, and he gave me assurance that for an absolute beginner, which I am, I'm struggling to grasp the concept. He's going to help me out. I got someone in my corner, guys. This guy, apparently. So let's check him out.
Hi there, my name is Hussein the Brain Axis. As most of you watching already know, I host a weekly fantasy football video. In addition to that, I've been a fantasy football editor for Fantasy Couch for the past 7 years. I'm also an approved expert on Fantasy Pros. That was just to give you a little background information about myself and who I am. This video is for beginners. If you've never played fantasy football, don't know what it is, have very little or no experience, this video is for you. You're going to love it. I'm going to teach you how to play from step 1 all the way to the championship. If you have no idea what fantasy football is, don't worry. And if you get stuck on something I'm talking about, you don't quite get it, make sure you watch the entire video because I'll likely explain it down the road. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what fantasy football is. Then I'm going to tell you how you can get started. So right after this video, you can go and get started playing fantasy football. Then we're going to talk about the draft, managing your team after the draft, and what the end result is, what you're ultimately doing in fantasy football, what the goal is. Let's start off with the definition. So, what is fantasy football? Fantasy football is where you go out and select players, select NFL players to create a team. Now, the better that NFL player performs, performs in real life on the field, the better your team performs. The better your players perform statistically in a game, the more fantasy points you get. The goal is to score more fantasy points than your opponent. It's as simple as that. Let's talk about how to get started. First, you want to join a league. Leagues are just about any size nowadays, but the typical league ranges from 8 players to 16 players. Now we don't call them players just because it gets confusing with the term NFL players. So they're called owners. So we refer to this as an 8-man league, a 10-man league, a 12-man league, or a 16-man league. You can play with friends and family, or you can play with coworkers, or you can play online in a public league.
Why am I
now, you
fucking
can be in a free league where
playing
you
with
play
my beard
fun,
so much?
Or you can be in a money league
I'm
where
looking at his.
there is a buy-in or a league fee. It could be $10, $100, or much more, depending on how hardcore you are. Now, in a money league, there's a commissioner. You can think of the
Some of you guys will be proud of me just then. I was about to use my mouse to go back 10 seconds, but I probably would have made it 15 or maybe 16 or maybe 30. So I used spacebar to pause it, and now I'm going to go backspace, 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 backspace. Boom!
You can play with coworkers.
I'm proud of myself.
Play online in a public league. Now you can be in a free league where you play for fun, or you can be in a money league where there is a buy-in or a league fee. It could be $10, $100, or much more, depending on how hardcore you are. Now, in a money league, there's a commissioner. You can think of the commissioner sort of like the commissioner in the NFL or the president of a club. He or she would mediate if there's any disputes, just sort of, sets the draft date, is pretty much in charge of make sure everyone has fun and the league runs smoothly. These leagues are held on a website. Some of the most popular are that you could join, so you would need an account to join. It's typically free to sign up. Some are ESPN, Yahoo, NFL.com, just to name a few. There's about a dozen more popular ones. CBS Sports, MFL, just as other examples.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to put it back again. I'm looking at his beard. I can't stop looking at it. I'd be better off just shutting my eyes and just listening. Let's try that again. Okay, sorry.
Date is pretty much in charge of make sure everyone has
part.
fun and the league runs smooth. You would need an account to join. It's typically free to sign up. Some are ESPN, Yahoo, NFL.com, just to name a few. There's about a dozen more popular ones. If there's any disputes, just sort of sets the draft date. Is pretty much in charge of make sure everyone has fun and the league runs smoothly. These leagues are held on a website. Some of the most popular are that you could join, so you would need an account to join. It's typically free to sign up. Some are ESPN, Yahoo, NFL.com, just to name a few. There's about a dozen more popular ones. CBS Sports, MFL, just as other examples. One piece of advice:
I don't get that.
You know when the draft is, what type of
I don't understand what he's talking about with those websites.
draft is
There's
it?
only 16 players in each of those leagues, or?
And all the league settings. Make sure you know your draft time and your draft date. You don't want to miss that. Now let's talk about the draft. The most important part of fantasy football is the draft. Now, it can be a snake draft or an auction draft. We won't get too much into an auction draft, but that's basically where an owner nominates a player and you bid. So you can get any player you want as long as it's within your budget. Every owner starts off with $200. Now, don't worry if that sounds confusing, because more than likely you won't be in an auction league. Those are much more rare. The popular one that you're likely going to be in is called the snake draft. This type of draft is very similar to a real NFL draft, except that the next round goes in the inverse draft order as the round before. Now, what the heck does that mean? That means that if you drafted last in a 10-man league, so there's 10 owners, you have the 10th pick, you draft last in the first round.
Who would you go with as the first pick?
round.
I have no idea.
Then the following
I gotta think
round,
about
you
it.
draft first. So you would have the 10th pick as well as the 11th. And of course, the guy who's drafting first in the first round would draft last.
How many players is there?
Round. Some basic advice and drafts to follow. Now, you want to make sure you don't draft anybody with severe injuries. You don't want to be the guy who drafts someone that's not alive, or someone that's not playing the whole season, or someone that's suspended the whole season. So keep that in mind when drafting. Those things matter, of course. If they don't play, they don't get you any points. You also want to keep in mind...
It's not funny, but...
Now, if you draft 2 quarterbacks, typically one to start and one on your bench, you usually don't want them to have the same bye weeks. That usually won't work out for you. If you have 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week on your team, that is a bad thing. Also, you want to draft for value. Now, that means that you don't want to just pick in the first round a player that you really like. If you can wait a couple more rounds, that's where you should draft them. Now, drafting for value is not a hard thing to do, but it does take some preparation and research. The best things you can do is look for ADP, so look for average draft position. That tells you exactly where people are being drafted. So if a quarterback is being drafted in the 5th round in most leagues, and you like that quarterback, you're in the 7th round and he's still there.
What's that? I'm going to use that. Average draft position. Let's do that right now. That might be my coach. This is what we want. Todd Gurley, number 1. Who is that? I don't think I've done a video on him. 6'1", 222 pounds, 23 years old. No way. So hang on. So the top 5 are all running backs. Why are running backs the top? Is it because there's lots of fantasy points on offer? I mean, I don't even know what they give them for. Saquon Barkley, he's number 5. Leonard Fournette, number 8. Oh, where's a quarterback? Aaron Rodgers, number 30, in the 3rd round, they reckon.
Quarterback is being drafted in the 5th round in most leagues, and you like that quarterback, you're in the 7th round and he's still there, that's a great place to draft him. You just got 5th round value for a 7th round pick. That's a thumbs up for you right there. Another place to look is rankings. Now, rankings aren't as important as the next one I'm going to mention. Rankings are basically players ranked from, let's say, 1 through 200 or 1 through 300, and that tells you about, how good a player is going to...
FantasyCouch.com. That guy's beard is amazing, isn't it? I'm looking at it, trying to listen to him, I'm thinking, I would trim the sides a little bit. It's a bit square for me. You know what I'm saying? Fantasy Couch, NFL. Top 300. Oh, cheat sheet. Should we be looking at this? For instance, if you drafted an elite quarterback and tight end, you don't want to waste your time looking at tons of quarterbacks and tight ends in the overall rankings. Overall rankings are useful, but only in the 1st round. After that, this top 300 cheat sheet is what you want to use. Alright, so it's telling us we don't want to use overall rankings. When drafting, you actually want to draft the most valuable and most scarce player at that position, not necessarily the player who will give you the most fantasy points. Oh, got to sign up for that. You know what, guys? You know what, man? I'm going to watch this, but I'm just going to go into it blind. I'm not going to watch anything. I'm just going to recall all the names that I've heard so far and build my team of those players. But hopefully it lets us know what categories are scored.
To do based on his projections for that season. Now, the most important thing you want to do are mock drafts. These are practice drafts that you do before your real draft to get a feel of how the real draft's going to go. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this because they are time consuming and it's time consuming to explain. So you can click on the link below here in the description and read the article. I'm going to go into more detail about how to save time doing mock drafts, how to make mock drafts more efficient. Please click on that article and you'll learn a lot more about mock drafts. You'll be more ready for your draft when that comes. After the draft, you have a full roster, you have a team. let's talk about managing your team throughout the season. You want to know who to start and who to sit each week. Your backups will sit on the bench, and you want to start your best players. Some tips on who to start for your best players. Obviously, you want to start the most talented players, the players that will produce the most points, but matchups are a really important thing to look at. If they're facing a tough run defense, you may want to bench that running back that you have. If they're facing a defense that allows a ton of pass yards, you may want to start that quarterback or that wide receiver that's playing against them. Now, if you're looking for more start-'em, sit-'em advice, we have weekly articles on our website, and if you need to ask me personally, who do I start? Should I start this guy? Should I start that guy? Should I sit this guy? The fastest way to reach me is on Twitter @FantasyCouch.
I'll make my own decisions, thanks.
As I can. Also, make sure you keep up to date on certain situations like injuries. If a player is 50-50 chance he's going to start, make sure you know whether he's actually starting or he's going to sit that game. You never want to start an injured player or a suspended player. You never want to be that guy in your league. There are some ways to try to improve your roster during the season. That's through trades and waivers. Now, trades are hard to pull off because you're going to try to trade a player for another player. You can try to trade even 3 players for 2 players. But the tricky part is that both
never going to
sides have to agree. So the trade has to be beneficial for both owners. A good piece of advice is to watch out for tricky trades. If you're just starting out in fantasy football, a lot of people try to take it.
Yeah, see, that's the main difference. You pick your players and you're pretty much stuck with them from the start because there's no money involved. It's not buying and selling players. Whereas fantasy rugby, back in the day, you would be able to sell and buy players like at any time. I think you'd have a certain amount of trades per week. I think it might have been like 5 trades, 5 sells and 5 buys per week. But yeah, you really want to make the right decisions. But I'm still confident in the fact that I'm just going to go in blind and use my knowledge so far. Maybe.
Advantage of you by sending terrible trades. So don't fall for those. Now, the most common and easiest way you're going to improve your team after the draft is through waivers. Waivers are NFL players that are not owned on anyone's roster. So if they're not on anybody's team, you can claim them off waivers. Now, there's different types of waivers because if 2 owners try to claim the same person, the same NFL player, then it has to go by a certain order or what we call waiver priority. Now, I say priority because if an owner is trying to own one player, they're trying to claim one player off waivers, while another owner is trying to claim the same player, one of those guys, one of those owners has to have priority. Now, there's inverse order. Inverse order is basically, let's say I have the first priority for week 1. I claim somebody, I get him, of course, because I have the first priority. The next week, I have last priority. So I'm not going to be able to claim the one guy I want if someone else claims them. The second one is inverse rankings. So basically the team that's doing the worst gets the best waiver priority. So the team that's last place will get first shot at waivers. Another way, which is more experienced, is more hardcore, you're likely not going to be doing it the first time, but it is popular. You definitely could be doing it, is the waiver auction. You bid on waivers. So you have, let's say, $1,000 in waiver money. The more you bid on a player is the higher the chance you're going to be able to get him. And let's talk about the final goal. The whole thing, why you're playing this, is to win the fantasy football Super Bowl. So first you have to make the playoffs. And like I said before when I talked about drafting, managing your team, is to know the league settings. So let's say you're in a 10-man league, so there's 10 owners. Typically in a league like that, 4 teams make the playoffs. So you got to make the playoffs, then you got to win the fantasy Super Bowl, and then you're a fantasy football champion. If you're in a league with your buddies, family, or co-workers, the champion can get a trophy or a belt or a ring like these ones.
Oh man, yeah.
Those on fantasycouch.com/store, so you may want to check that out. Also, some leagues, if you watch the show,
I'd love to get a ring.
That may be the reason why you're watching this video and you want to play fantasy football. In the league, they have the Shiva, that's for the winner. That's like our belt or our trophy or ring. And for the loser, the person that comes absolutely last, they have the...
Guys, I really should put the word out right now and say the next 15 people who join this league are coming on with me, but I just couldn't. I don't know. Should I? I reckon I'm just gonna join a random one and tell you guys. Like, I don't know if you can see the results. Well, I'll make videos about the results actually, and if I do win, then I can get one of those belts or one of those rings, and that would be an awesome prize. So you know what? I cannot wait to do this.
The Sacco. So sometimes it's tradition that the person that comes in absolute last gets the Sacco. And in this one league, the loser actually has to get a tattoo, and the winner knows what the tattoo is. So this is a lot of fun. You don't want a terrible tattoo on you for the rest of your life. Definitely don't want to lose in that league. And that about wraps up this video. Make sure you guys watch this video so I can explain to you why our fantasy football belts are so freaking cool. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you'll be amongst the first to know when I come out with new videos.
I want one of those belts.
New video shortly about how to play fantasy football, DFS, daily fantasy sports.
That pass was incredibly long. Incredibly.
And I'll also be giving out some basic tips on what you can do to improve your DFS game. I'll see you guys on the next video.
Alright guys, well, I reckon it's time to go to fantasy football. Boom. So, I have actually registered for it before, but I missed the draft. So I'm gonna say fuck it to that. Oh, here we go. What is this? My team. What is my team? No, this is not my team. But let's just have a look. Have people played? No, 2017 season. What the fuck? Wait, what is my freaking roster? Are you serious? This is my roster. Okay. I made a team. Didn't go through with the draft. I was asleep or at work. I'm fucking busy. I didn't quite understand it yet, so I just let it go. But it looks like this is the team that's been picked for me. Now, I either keep this team or I do a draft live on camera. So, you know what? Of course I'm going to do a draft live on camera. So, we're going to call this video here. If you have liked it, please press like. If you want to subscribe, please do. And I'm going to be back here very shortly to pick my team on camera and do the best job I can. But let's just have a look before I do go. Tom Brady, Alvin Kamara, Rookie of the Year. Do I know anyone else? Nope. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Maybe I should do just a little bit of research. Just a little. Possibly.